Today we're going to be talking about love. Isn't it beautiful? Sometimes. Sometimes it's not so beautiful. But I wanted to share the ways that I deepened my relationship with my husband, Brian. We've been together for almost 10 years now, which is crazy to think about. But we've navigated being completely different people and really strengthening our relationship from year to year. I think every year gets better, which is really cool to say. And that's not to say it's perfect in any capacity, let's be real. But these 5 different ways have really impacted our relationship in a positive way, and who knows, they may help you. Obviously, there's about a million different ways you can improve your relationship, and every relationship is so different. So maybe some of this will resonate with you and some won't. So take what you want, leave what you don't, and let's get into it. So the first way I began strengthening my relationship with Brian is by working on myself. How are you going to fully love someone else if you don't love yourself? And if you look really deep within yourself, do you love yourself? That's a hard question to ask because many of us out there don't, and we don't even know that we don't love ourselves. But for me specifically, I did not like myself in many capacities. I didn't like my body. I didn't like my face. I didn't like my attitude. I didn't like how I was spending time with certain people. I just didn't like things about myself. And that really manifests in your relationship. If you don't like yourself, how are you supposed to enjoy your time with your significant other? I began to notice over time that the hatred for myself would show up in defensiveness whenever confrontation would come up between Brian and I. So I wasn't really able to let myself go with Brian and really deepen our relationship because I was simply putting up this wall of defensiveness instead of inviting him to share how he feels. So I had to simply learn how to love myself. And that came from positive self on a daily basis. That came from daily meditation, positive affirmations, going to therapy. Therapy has taught me so much. All of those things began healing the own wounds that I had with myself, about myself, and that began to heal my relationship at the same time. Second on the list, respectful arguments. So I never saw my parents fight. They never fought in front of me. I'm not saying this is good or bad. I just never saw what respectful arguments or respectful confrontation looked like. So all I was basing this off of was number 1, the self-hatred for myself and the defensiveness. And number 2, the relationships I had in the past and the explosiveness that they had whenever we got in a fight. So that's all I had to base it off of. Luckily, Brian does not get heated whenever we have a fight, and he would always stay very calm. And this taught me over time how much more beneficial it was when you could have respectful arguments. You could have respectful confrontation. You could come to the person and say, hey, you really hurt my feelings when you said this. And the person could say, I'm so sorry I did that. How can I improve in the future to make sure this doesn't happen again? I also began to see that everyone's perspective of the same situation is going to be completely different. So when Brian saw something that happened in our relationship, he was going to see it completely different than me. And it doesn't mean it's right or wrong, but we had to come into an agreement to respect each other in those times where we saw things completely different. So we both had to really learn to support the other person, even if we didn't understand their point of view. And this comes down to fights that we got into. This came down to politics, whatever it might be. We respect the other person and their perspectives, and we make sure that they feel seen, they feel heard, and then we try to fix whatever has been broken. And some things you might just see completely different on. Oftentimes we see different on politics and different issues that are going on in the times, but that doesn't mean that we don't respect each other and what that person believes. And so the more we began respecting each other's perspectives and being respectful in arguments, the much easier things got in our relationship over time. Now, number 3, this one is going to blow your mind. It's called communication. Have you ever heard of it? Is this a new one for you? Obviously not. Did you know you have to communicate in relationships for them to work? Who knew? The thing about Brian and I is we have completely different communicating styles. I like to talk all the time, which gets me in trouble oftentimes on these different platforms. I like to talk constantly from the moment I wake up till the moment I go to bed. Brian does not. He wants to communicate when he wants to communicate, which doesn't always line up when I want to communicate. So we have to communicate that and understand that about each other. So something I started to do was leave him alone in the mornings. I'm not going to talk to him unless it's something crazy important. I'm letting him be, letting him settle into the day. And then when he's ready to start talking, then I enter the conversation. I really try to do this just to respect his boundaries and respect his time at the same time. But at the same time, when I really want to talk about something and that's important to me, I will speak that to him. And so he knows, he understands, and he can reciprocate that back. Now, communication is not going to always be perfect. And so I always try to communicate when communication feels like it's lacking. So much communicating. But if something is lacking and I feel like I'm not getting something from him, I tell him that. Instead of letting it boil inside me and I'm getting frustrated that he didn't ask me a question or he didn't tell me something or he didn't do something, I simply say, hey, can you do this for me? Hey, it hurt my feelings that you didn't ask this. Hey, I just want to bring this up because it's been on my mind. Instead of thinking that someone knows what you are thinking, because nobody does, I simply ask. And that has improved our relationship drastically. I used to get really upset when he wouldn't think of something ahead of time. Why would he need to think about that? That's something I thought up in my own head. So communicating what I need, communicating what's going on in our relationship, communication. We talk about sex, we talk about frustrations in our relationship, we talk about the hard things that we're struggling with. And if I feel like I'm not getting enough communication, I ask for that. So it's just simply asking. Communicating your needs is so important because guess what? The person you are with or whatever relationship you are in, they're not a mind reader. Did you know that too? Man, I am dropping bombs over here. Number 4, supporting time apart. Now, everybody's relationship is so different. I have friends who are with their significant other all the time and they love it and it's completely perfect. Brian and I are a little bit different and we like to do things apart. He loves to go golfing and go do that. He loves to go hit balls, go golfing with his friends, go on golf trips. He loves it. It's become his new favorite hobby that he really wants to get better at. And if you know anything about golf, it's very time consuming. And I like to do other things. I like to go during the week to lunch with friends. I like to go out to new restaurants. I like to try different things. And I like to work a lot. I just really enjoy that. And so we have our different things that we like to do separately, and then we can find time together, but we support each other in those hobbies of doing things that are completely different than the other person and the other person doesn't have interest in. I have no interest in going golfing. Maybe I will someday, but at this point I have no interest in it, and he has no interest in trying all these little restaurants with bite-sized food. Not his thing. He's not obsessed with food like me. But I really do think it's incredibly important to support your partner doing things without you. And every relationship's going to be different, but supporting the time that they want to have alone, and then they can support you in those times alone. Like me, just wanting to go check into a hotel for a night just to have a night alone by myself, to go to the spa, do whatever I want, and then I can support him in whatever he wants to do. Those times apart, I think, are incredibly important and should be supported in a relationship. And I know it has gone a long way in our relationship. And number 5, I think this is a no-brainer, and this is going to be everybody gets this, but doing things you love together. And this can be anything. This can be going out to a restaurant. This can be going for a walk. For Brian and I, this means travel. We love traveling together. And we have such great deep moments when we're traveling together. And obviously you can't do that all the time. So we find different things in between those big trips. But travel is one of those things that deeply connects us in a different way. And so we try to make that a priority. And if things shift and we can't make that a priority, we find other ways to spend time together. But making sure you're finding time to make something really special. And every couple is going to be so different. And travel might not interest you in any capacity, but that's what we love to do. And making sure we prioritize that big trip, maybe once a year or a couple small trips, that has been really great for our relationship because it's time to deeply connect, go offline, get off our computers, get off work when I actually do that, and connect on a completely different level. So if you can find those little moments that you love spending time together, even if you're just doing that once a week, once every couple weeks, whatever it looks like in your relationship. I think that's so important to connect you on a deeper level than you always get when you're stuck in your home or you're just stuck in your routine. Relationships are not perfect in any capacity, and they're always changing and always evolving in new ways. I know that I have changed completely from when I met Brian when I was 23 years old to now I'm 34 years old. So I've known him for 11 years. That is a good chunk of time to completely change and evolve as a person. And so your needs are going to constantly evolve. And then hopefully you can evolve together. But these ways in our 6 years of marriage have greatly improved our marriage, and hopefully they do the same for you. We even found this date night book that we use from time to time when we're trying to figure out how to connect on a different level. And you'll just scratch off a day and it will tell you what you're doing that night. It's so much fun. I'm gonna try to find it and I'll link it below. But I wanna hear from you. What has been the most helpful thing for deepening your relationship with your spouse? I wanna know, because everybody has different tips and you never know how it's gonna help somebody, especially who's reading these comments, and me as well. So let me know in the comment section below, and don't forget to like and subscribe so you can see even more upcoming videos in the future. Next up, I have a few more videos I think you're going to like, so stay tuned for those. I'm Juli Bauer Roth of PaleoMG, and those videos are coming up next.